Oh my God.
Oh, dude, you're like a real superhero, man.
Oh my God.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to an all-new episode of Keeping It Real with me, Alex Cardinale. Thank you all for tuning in. You know, when I scheduled today's episode, I never thought it would actually be on the anniversary of this tragedy. So, for the first time ever, we are talking about a tragedy that occurred on this very day. What a coincidence. I never scheduled it to go down that way, but it's pretty cool if you ask me. Now, today's tragedy is terrible. 9 firefighters lost their life battling this fire that took place in Charleston, South Carolina. It is the second worst firefighter disaster, only behind September 11th at the World Trade Center. Very, very tragic. So, today's tragedy. 16 years ago today, June 18th, 2007, a huge fire broke out at the Sofa Super Store in Charleston, South Carolina. Unfortunately, 9 firefighters lost their lives in this fire. The fire quickly grew, a flashover occurred, and it quickly became dangerous inside. Toxic conditions and life-threatening conditions happened very quickly, and as a result, 9 firefighters tragically lost their lives in this fire. So on this episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale, I am going to go over the Charleston, South Carolina Sofa Superstore fire. I'm going to discuss everything that happened, and then I'm going to go over the timeline of events, and finally, I will share my thoughts on this tragedy. Now, feel free to post your thoughts in the comments. Without further ado, let's go ahead and get this episode started. I'm going to share some pictures and a video of the fire to get this show started. I want to share the video with you so you can see how quickly the fire intensified and how it was really, really dangerous. But first, let's take a look at the results of the fire. Here are some images of the day after the fire. As you can tell, the building is no longer usable. It was burned down to its foundation. Here's a better picture from further away. And still, you can tell it was a pretty devastating fire to the building. Here is the center of the building. The building is totally demolished. It is totally ruined. And here's the final picture. This is the warehouse that is totally ruined from this intense, strong fire. So let's see a video of the fire. The video is about 4 minutes long, and it shows how quickly and how intense the fire was, and how quickly the fire spread, and how quickly it became deadly inside the Sofa Superstore. Check it out. That video did a great job showing the scope of this tragedy and the impact that it had. Now, I hope to do a great job explaining the scope of of this tragedy. So let's learn about this devastating fire that took place today, 16 years ago, in Charleston, South Carolina, at the Sofa Super Store. Now, the fire occurred at the Sofa Super Store, composed of a 42,000-foot single-story steel trusted showroom building with a 17,000-foot warehouse building located behind the retail space at 1807 Savannah Highway in Charleston. The building had no fire sprinkler system. Sofa Superstore had set up shop there in 1992. The fire started at approximately 7 p.m. in a covered loading dock area built between the showroom and warehouse building, which was attached to both buildings. At the time, the business was open and employees were present. Charleston firefighters arrived on the scene within 3 minutes of the alarm, followed soon after by firefighters from the St. Andrews Public Service District. The initial attack focused on extinguishing the fire in the loading dock area, with a secondary effort to search for and evacuate people inside and prevent the fire from spreading to the showroom and warehouse. Crews entering the showroom reportedly initially encountered clear visibility with only very little puffs or smoke visible near the ceiling at the back of the showroom. Shortly thereafter, an exterior door was opened near where the fire was raging. Efforts to close the door failed, allowing the fire to enter the showroom. Firefighters were ordered to stretch 2 hose lines into the showroom to attack the spreading fire. However, the pre-connected hose line from one of the units was too short. This required some firefighters to again exit the building to add additional sections of hose, and left only one small hand line to hold back the growing fire. At about this time, fire dispatchers advised the crews on scene that they had received a 911 call from an employee who was trapped in the warehouse, which required some firefighters to direct their attention to the rescue. The trapped employee was eventually rescued by firefighters who breached an exterior wall to reach him. Despite efforts to confine and extinguish the fire, it continued to spread into the structure and ignited furniture in the showroom, growing more quickly than the few operating hose lines could control. Meanwhile, efforts to stretch and begin operating additional hose lines continued. At 7:41 p.m., the showroom area of the store experienced a flashover, while at least 16 firefighters were working inside. The flashover contributed to the rapid deterioration of the structural integrity of the building, leading to a near complete collapse of the roof minutes later. Many of the firefighters caught in the flashover were unable to escape and were trapped under the collapsed roof and shelving, weakened by the fast-spreading fire. Several calls for help were made by trapped firefighters, and efforts to rescue them were commenced. These efforts proved unsuccessful. By the time the fire was brought under control, 9 Charleston firefighters had been killed. The Sofa Superstore site was on a major business and commuter artery feeding the suburbs and shopping centers of Charleston, South Carolina. Car traffic continued unabated for many critical minutes in the initial stages of the fire, driving over water supply lines and continuing to sever water supply problems as the supply line snaked from hydrants in surrounding blocks up to a half-mile away from the center of the fire. Eventually, automobile traffic on Savannah Highway was stopped so water pressure would be more consistent. The traffic diversion causing surrounding neighborhoods to fill with stranded commuters and onlookers. As the fire diminished and appeared contained, nearing 11 p.m., surrounding neighborhoods began to clear and onlookers departed, most unaware of the loss of life during the blaze. According to Charleston County Coroner Ray Wooten, the firefighters died of a combination of smoke inhalation and burns, but not from injuries sustained from the collapse itself. So it's very sad to know that these firefighters choked on the smoke and they suffered burns, and that is how they died. It's very, very unfortunate. It was the greatest single loss of firefighters in the United States since 343 firefighters were killed in the collapse of the World Trade Center in the September 11th, 2001 attacks. It was also the deadliest fire in South Carolina since a fire that killed 11 people at the Lancaster County Jail in 1979. So that is some information on the fire. Let's go over a timeline of events to break down this tragedy even more. At 7:08 p.m., the first 911 call reporting the fire is received. At 7:09 p.m., dispatch units, Charleston Fire Department, Engine 10, Engine 11, Ladder 5, and Battalion 4 are all dispatched. At 7:10, Battalion 4 arrives on scene. Dispatch units include Charleston Fire Department Engine 16 and Car 2. At 7:11 p.m., Engine 11 arrives first and reports a trash and debris fire that is against a wall in the loading dock area, but they have not yet entered the building to check for extension. Engine 10 and Car 2 arrive. At 7:12, Ladder 5 arrives. Engine 12 is dispatched. At 7:13, Engine 15 is dispatched approximately. Fire crews enter the showroom building and find no obvious fire. However, some white smoke is visible near the ceiling tiles near where the fire burns outside. A door leading from the showroom to the loading dock area is opened by the incident commander, and the force of the fire pulls the door out of his hand. The inrush of oxygen feeds the fire and makes it impossible to close the door. Fire enters the showroom. At 7:14, the incident commander reports fire in the showroom. At 7:15, Engine 16 arrives and enters the showroom to join Ladder 5's crew attacking the fire from inside. Also at 7:15, Engine 19 is dispatched. At 7:16 p.m., Charleston Fire Chief Rusty Thomas arrives. Several off-duty firefighters also begin to arrive. Engine 6 is dispatched. At 7:16, inadequate water supplies begins to be a problem, which is compounded by some hoses being run over by passing vehicles. At 7:17, Engine 12 and Engine 15 arrive. At 7:20, Engine 19 arrives. Problems continue with the water supply. At 7:21, Engine 6 arrives. At 7:24 p.m., Platoon 5 arrives. St. Andrew Car 3 from neighboring St. Andrews Public Service District decided on their own to respond and soon requested more help from St. Andrews crews. At 7:25 p.m., St. Andrews Engine 2 and St. Andrews Rescue 1 arrived. 1 minute later, at 7:26 p.m., an employee of the Sofa Super Store calls 911 and reports that he is trapped in the warehouse building. The crew from St. Andrews is notified of the trapped employee and attempts to locate him from the outside. At 7:29 p.m. approximately, the trapped employee is rescued when the St. Andrews firefighters breach an exterior wall and pull him out of the building. At 7:31 p.m., the first firefighters in the building have been breathing from their air bottles for approximately 18 minutes and will soon run out of air. Conditions in the showroom continue to worsen, while at least 16 firefighters continue to work inside. Engine 3 is dispatched. At 7:32 p.m., things turn for the worse. A firefighter inside calls "Mayday, Mayday" over his radio. Soon after, another voice on the radio is heard to say, "Car 1, Chief Thomas, please tell my wife that I love you." Another firefighter inside is heard on the radio saying, "In Jesus' name, amen." Chief Thomas orders his commanders to account for their crews and is told that some firefighters remain inside. One firefighter attempting to escape is trapped behind a large glass in front of the showroom and is freed when someone smashes it as other crews prepare to enter the building to rescue firefighters in distress. An emergency alert is activated on the radio of Ladder 5's engineer, who is inside, but calls to that radio going unanswered. Several pass devices worn by firefighters are heard, meaning that firefighters in distress have manually activated them or they have been motionless for at least 30 seconds. Firefighters began smashing all of the glass in front of the store to allow escaping firefighters out and rescuing firefighters in, but this allows large amounts of oxygen to reach the fire, which quickly begins to grow in intensity. At 7:38 p.m., Chief Thomas orders a full evacuation. At 7:40 p.m., Engine 3 arrives. At 7:41 p.m. approximately, a flashover occurs. Virtually all of the interior of the showroom building erupts in fire within seconds. Chaotic radio traffic now ties up the radio channels, but calls about water supply problems continue. A final unsuccessful attempt at rescue is made, but quickly forced back by the intensity of the fire. At 7:45 p.m., the front of the showroom building collapses, sending a fireball and smoke plume out of the front of the building over the heads of fleeing firefighters and showering hundreds of onlookers with ash and debris. Fire then shoots 30 feet into the air as much of the rest of the structure collapses. At 10 p.m. approximately, after the fire is brought under control, the remains of two of the firefighters' bodies are found near the center of the building. At 10:45 p.m. approximately, Charleston Mayor Joe Riley announces that several firefighters remain missing. At approximately 11 p.m., the bodies of two more firefighters are located about 30 feet from the first group. At approximately 11:15 p.m., approximately, three firefighters' bodies are found at the south end of the building. And finally, approximately at 4 a.m., the remaining two missing firefighters are located at the northeast corner of the building. And that is a timeline of events for this tragic fire. So I would like to say rest in peace to the following firefighters who lost their lives in this fire. Captain Lewis Mulkey was 34 years old. Captain Mike Benke was 49. Firefighter Melvin Champagne was 46. Captain William Billy Hutchison was 48. Engineer Bradford Brad Beatty was 37. Firefighter James Earl Dranton was 56 years old. Mark Kelsey was 40 years old. Michael French was 27 years old. And Brandon Thompson was 27-year-old. So James Drayton was the oldest victim, who had been on the fire department for 32 years, while Michael French was the youngest at 27, and he was there for a year and a half. And Brandon Thompson was also the youngest at 27, and he was a firefighter for 4 years. So let's take a quick moment of silence for all 9 victims who sadly lost their lives. All right, thank you so much for joining me in the moment of silence. So, about 50 investigators in all were assigned to the investigation, including the City of Charleston Police Department, the Charleston County Sheriff's Office, the South Carolina State Law Enforcement Division, and the ATF National Response Team. The ATF confirmed on June 23rd that the fire originated in the covered loading dock area situated between the showroom and warehouse buildings in a pile of trash near an area where employees were known to take smoking breaks. Neither of the destroyed buildings had sprinklers, nor were they required by local codes to have them. Had they had sprinklers, this could have been prevented. And that is the tragedy that was 16 years ago, the Charleston Sofa Superstore fire. Now, my thoughts on this fire is that it was horrific. It was tragic. 9 firefighters lost their life. Those 9 firefighters that died will always be known as American heroes. They will be known as Charleston, South Carolina's best, because they went in there to fight the fire, do their job, but unfortunately they lost their life, and that is awful. So this tragedy is something that we can teach in the future to prevent future tragedies like this one. All buildings should have a fire system now. They should have a sprinkler system. They should have fire alarms, and they should be built not to collapse under the heat of fire. Terrible, terrible, terrible tragedy. And I'm sorry that 9 families have lost their husband or their son, and they lost a firefighter. It's very, very tragic. All right. Well, I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. Stay safe, everyone. Stay out of the line of fire. If you see a fire, call 911 and report it. Make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, American Alex Cardinale, for more episodes like this one. I will see you on the next episode of Keeping It Real with Alex Cardinale. Stay safe, everyone, and good night.
Over that's all, folks.